Hello and welcome to PM Express. My name is Nana Ansakwao. In the wake of numerous unexplained fire outbreaks that the country is experiencing recently, it is curious to note that by law, citizens are obligated to insure their properties, including even old trotros. Yet the state in which makes the laws does not insure any of its own properties. And yet, apart from the Volta River Authority, almost state assets and properties are not insured against any liability. Not even the Flagstaff House is insured. Have you ever thought about what Ghana's government lost during the fire outbreak at the Foreign Ministry in 2009? What did we lose? Who really knows? Do we even have an asset register? Have you thought about the protocols, international agreement, conventions among other nations and business entitles that were lost in the fire? All we did was to pack up and then move into the Flagstaff House, and business continued as usual. There is actually a law passed in 2006 which requires compulsory insurance for all public buildings, Act 724, which was passed in 2006 but only implemented in August 2011. It requires all property owners to have both liability and fire insurance. Like motor vehicles, it is an offense to use or cause to use any property without an insurance cover. Is government above the law? Can we afford to insure state property? Aren't we bearing the cost of insurance for state-owned property through the payment of judgment debts anyway? I am getting into insurance of state-owned properties with Larry Kwesi Jagir, a chartered insurer and lawyer who, well, will be my guest on PM Express. But make sure I got the surname right. Jagir, Larry Kwesi Jagir. But for the purpose of this interview, Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
This is a very important area.
Yeah.
And obviously you are a charter, so I'm sure you educate us more. But somehow, you know, in other jurisdictions, you cannot move past anything unless it's insured. Be your house, if you want to get a loan or anything, unless you provide some sort of insurance on it, you don't move past anything. Mm. Is the state immune from insurance?
To be frank, the law you referred to at 724, which is the Insurance Act of 2006.
Yeah, it's an old one.
Yes, places the obligation to insure on private institutions,
okay.
Not the state.
Not the state, okay.
To be frank, Section 183 of the Act enjoins private citizens or organizations who are in the process of constructing a new building to take insurance to cover liabilities that may arise to third parties and also liabilities that may come out of the employment of people to work on the project. So here we are talking about two liabilities to the general public, that is property or injury or death to third parties, and then injury that may be caused to employees whilst the project is under construction. Now, there is also an obligation that all private buildings used for commercial purposes should be insured, and that you find in Section 184 of the law. 184.1.
All private buildings used
for commercial purposes.
Okay, okay.
And the law defines what commercial means.
So are you a clinic or?
And to be frank, clinics, educational institutions are specifically mentioned in the law.
Oh, I see.
Clinics, that's hospitals, educational institutions are specifically mentioned. Let me go back to Section 184 again. part of that section states specifically that buildings owned or under construction should be insured against collapse. And with the indication that the reference is to private institutions, the state, by implication, is excluded. And the reason has always been this: the state has the capacity to put back what they have lost through any damage to properties owned by the state. So that essentially is the basis for the exclusion. As to whether in reality the state can't immediately put the buildings back is another story altogether. But there is no obligation on any state institution to take insurance. But let me go further to explain that over the years, we have had situations where state institutions, especially the parastatals, they take up insurance.
Even when you say parastatals?
Parastatals, that is those who essentially do not belong to the civil service. So let me cite an example. The authorities.
Okay. Okay. So like VRA.
VRA, and then even institutions as commissions. And in my industry, I will mention the National Insurance Commission, which is a regulatory body for insurance companies. And I'm also absolutely sure that institutions like the Securities and Exchange Commission, or institutions like that, all insure first their properties and their employees. So it is not a general indication that properties and those who work for state and parastatals do not have insurance covering them.
I see.
Yes.
If you take something like the Foreign Affairs building that burns down,
yes.
I mean, the losses to the state, I'm sure, has never come out yet, but it's obvious that it will be huge.
It will be millions of Ghana cedis.
Yes,
yeah.
Both in cash and even in sentimental archives.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who can agitate this, but being an insurer, being that the state uses taxpayers' money to say that, oh, we've got the means, natural fact, it's not your means. It means more for roads and hospitals and everything, and not for just in case fire burns. So I don't know where a civil society stands against the state as far as insurance is concerned.
Really, I also do not know who should agitate for the state to cover its own assets or to cover the assets owned by the state. But I know for a fact that there have been some work over the last few years, especially after the Foreign Ministry fire incident, to get the state to insure. I am also informed, and I'm aware that some committee was set up that did some work, and there have been some instruction to some even ministries to insure their vehicles. I know for a fact that ministry vehicles which are used for projects invariably end up getting insured. I also know for a fact that some ministries go beyond even vehicles to insure their assets. I can mention one ministry, for example, Ministry of Energy. They have a lot of warehouses where they keep items for their various projects. Those warehouses are insured. I can say that for a fact. So it is not a general issue that the state does not insure.
Just some parts of it.
Yes.
Okay, but so we want to look at the broader picture, which is our culture of insurance anyway. We seem to insure because the police will arrest us. There's that general, like people insure their cars.
I know for a fact that if the law were not there that people should insure compulsorily, a lot of people will not insure. I was in Egypt recently, and I was really surprised that there's no compulsion on anybody to insure their vehicles. So a lot of people drive without insurance. those who are informed will insure their vehicles, but a lot of people really are not bothered. So maybe presumably if there were no legislation that people should insure, maybe in Ghana we'll have the same situation.
Is there, I mean, so how do you, because if you look at these market fires,
Yeah.
Someone is borrowed, 3, 4, 7,000 CDs,
Yeah.
set up their business, and for them, it is their livelihood.
Yeah.
And then you wake up one morning and it's all burnt down. So the education or the understanding that you need to safeguard that in any case of eventuality, you can even get half your money back or your full money back. Who spearheads this education for us to
You
get
see,
into that
the
culture?
various market associations are doing a lot as far as publicity is concerned. You see a lot of representatives of insurance companies, insurance broking companies, appearing on programs. I have appeared on programs in the past, talking to people. But the culture is that a lot of people do not appreciate the benefit that insurance brings. Until something happens, most people don't, why should I give my money when I can't see anything physical? But let's talk about the market fires. Even if people want to insure, I'm not too sure whether a lot of insurance companies will want to insure market stalls.
It's just like a hazard waiting to
Yes,
happen.
yes, it's a hazard really waiting to happen. Insurance is about unpredictability,
But
or what we call fortuitous.
This is
You can,
predictable.
you can see it happening with cables all over the market. Until we start building markets like you find outside the jurisdictions where you lived, we will have a situation where even if the people are prepared to insure, they may not get the appropriate insurance cover. Maybe, and I repeat this, maybe if there's some state intervention, or if the state decides to put up maybe a sort of social insurance arrangement to cover situations like this, then that body would possibly be responsible for this sort of arrangement. But for now, a lot of those structures are, in our term, uninsurable.
You see, so that then puts somebody in the wrong. Either maybe the district in which they are, either the fire service, they put, somebody should say that if the place is not insurable, then I can't let you work in there.
That is where we should go. We need to have a lot of markets like the Kaneshie market, which is insured, and even the other side of the Makola market, where you have the structure, where the Makola Markets Limited have their locations. The structure itself is owned by Makola Markets Limited, so they're insured. But when you go deep into Makola, which possibly have the market women or the market men putting up their own structures, you would not have any arrangement for insurance. But if a shop is properly constructed in the market, a shop such that it can be used for as collateral for a loan, the bank would definitely insist that you should insure the structure before they grant you the facility. That will happen. You can go into some of these markets and see properly built structures, but they face the same hazard as the stalls, because fire would not concentrate itself to the stalls. If it starts, it will definitely spread.
You see, once upon a time, two taxis are driving, they collide, they get out, the drivers fight, and then probably whoever is the strongest fix gets his car fixed.
Or they decide that you go and fix your car and
I'll fix my car. But they all have insurance. So somehow the culture was that just the insurance was to show to the police when they stopped you, and not actually. I don't know if it's because of the bureaucracy you go through to get your payout, but when I was driving, I remember my first car. I crashed it a few times, but it was I fix your car for you, or you fix my car for me.
No.
And then you go, but every time there was insurance on the car.
Yeah, that really shouldn't be the issue. The situation is not as bad as it is sometimes portrayed by the public. Insurance companies pay, especially if it comes to the domain of motor insurance. it is the most unprofitable line of business for insurance companies.
I see.
Because the claims are normally in excess of the premiums, the total premiums, especially for the commercial vehicles, the truck trucks and the taxis. You imagine a truck carrying 20 people getting involved in an accident and 10 of them dying. You know, most of those trucks pay 80 to 100 Ghana cedis for an annual cover. Insurance companies end up paying injury or death claim to the people who are injured and those who die in the vehicles. So one claim could possibly run into hundreds of thousands of Ghana cedis. So they pay, especially for motor, they pay. But without it, you can imagine what will happen. There will be no recourse for anybody. Even if there's a delay in paying, eventually there will be payment. Because the regulator is strict as far as those who practice in the market are concerned. It is for that reason that we've had some insurance company taken off the list of insurers in recent past. If you don't have the capacity to settle claims and those things, the regulator will take you off. They are absolutely very strict these days. And competition to add to it.
So then you
if you are not settling claims, you eventually the market will find you out, and then you lose business. You either have to fold up, or the regulator comes after you.
We'll go back to the state. I mean, if you look at something like the Flagstaff House, cost $200 million to build.
Yep.
I mean, that's a state, you know, $200 million. I mean, at the moment, we struggle with 10 million cedis for teachers and, you know, they're striking. So, you know, some smaller amounts that unions go on strike because finance minister will say, look, hold on, my coffers are not full yet, they'll be full later. So not to look for any protection for an investment of $200 million. Is the state taking too much of a risk?
If it is true that there is no insurance, the state is possibly taking a lot of risk. But I don't have any evidence that it's not insured, because that's a distinct feature of Accra, and I'm sure maybe along the line, but we'll find out.
We'll find out. Well,
yes, we can always find out. But if you have conducted some investigations.
Yeah, we did, and we'll speak to Andrew Awoni later on in the show.
Okay.
His paper, The Scandal, came out with this story.
Okay.
And it was quite amazing that, you know, for such an edifice, the state hasn't bothered to put any security behind it in case of eventuality. And since everything seems to be burning down.
That's good information for me. I'm into intermediary services. Maybe I should start talking to someone.
We're splitting the commission.
Okay.
We're splitting the commission. Then you have the police. Because I know the police too don't insure their vehicles.
Which is true.
Now, I mean, police vehicles, they should be insured. Because they are always on the road.
The statute as it stands now
does not require that they do it.
Does not require that they do it. I've quoted a section of the law. And no, as far as motor vehicles are concerned, it's another law altogether. But even that law is only concerned about injury or death to third parties. The car is not covered under the provisions of that law, which is the Third Party Motor Vehicles Insurance Act of 1958. It's a very old law.
As a policeman, are you insured? As a policeman, does the police service give you any insurance cover just in case you get hurt on duty or something? Or again, you just come and fall back on the state?
That is a different thing altogether. I know for a fact that the fire service, they have some arrangement for their employees. I also know that sometime back the police were working on some arrangement. I won't be surprised if they have something for their employees now. That is distinct for insuring properties. Because even though the issue has been raised and people have raised issues with it, the Workmen Compensation Act does not discriminate whether you are in the government sector or you're in the private sector. That act is to the effect that every employee should ensure they have an arrangement in place to compensate their employees in the event of injury, death, or illness in the course of their employment. That's section 126 of that law. It does not say the law is applicable only to private individuals or the police, which is the case for property under the Insurance Act. But the Workmen Compensation Law has no distinction. So there is some obligation on even the seat of government to have some insurance arrangement in place or to have some compensation arrangement in place, because the Workmen Compensation Act does not state that you should take insurance, as distinct from what you find in Britain, where the law is specific. The Employers' Liability Act is specific that you should take insurance. Ours only indicate that you should take or you should make an arrangement to compensate. But invariably, most employees take insurance rather than put funds away to compensate their employees in the event of injury or death. So the obligation is on the state as it is on the private institutions and individuals also.
Okay, I'm going to take a break here, and then when we come back, I'll try and get Andrew Awuni on the phone to speak to the issue. And we're talking about insurance of state-owned properties, but we're looking at the broader section of insurance and our culture, even towards insuring our property, our lives, and stuff like that. Stay tuned, we're coming back.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back. We are talking about the culture of insurance and the state not insuring everything, but apparently the state is not obliged. But should the state be obliged? Because the reason why I'm saying that, and I'm speaking to Larry Kwesi Giage, who is a chartered insurer and also a lawyer, so he's well within his jurisdiction to talk about this matter. The state happens to own the most expensive and the larger thing, i.e. the shipyards, the airports, the train stations, and all these things. So should the state get into the culture of insurance so that we follow suit? I mean, would it help?
All the things you mentioned are insured.
They're all insured?
Yeah, they are owned by authorities of the state.
I see.
They are not owned by government, as in the word government, civil service and all that.
They have their own sort of
they are institutions, and a lot of them now are limited liability companies. The airport is owned by Ghana Airport Companies Limited. It's a limited liability, and I'm sure they have insured. Not that I'm sure. Even Civil Aviation Authority, which is a regulatory body, has its assets insured. So it is only those things that are owned in the civil service. I don't even know how to describe it.
So like ministries, police.
But fire service, the personnel are insured, I'm sure, but the police, I'm not too sure.
Hello, I think I've been joined by Andrew now. Good evening, Andrew.
Yeah, good evening, Nana.
Andrew, today we're looking at the subject of insurance of state-owned properties, or the lack of it. Now, this was generated by your paper, which is The Scandal. And so I have with me here Larry Kwesi Giage, who is a chartered insurer and also a lawyer. Now, what he's saying is that the situation is not as bad as the paper portrays it. Indeed, most state-owned properties are insured, all but the core ones. And also the law of insurance is more to the private sector rather than the state sector. So the law obliges the private companies or entities to insure, but not necessarily government entities. I don't know what you have to say to that.
Well, thank you very much, Nana. But the essence of the story you are referring to was actually to provoke a discussion, which I think we have succeeded in doing. And that's why we are talking about it on this very important program, the 9 p.m. Express. Again, the focus of the story you are referring to was the Flagstaff House in particular.
Sure.
We also made reference to the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs Ministry building, the new Defense Ministry building, and we talked about some of the very important pieces of infrastructure that have come up in the last decade. And we were just wondering if something could be done about it in terms of insurance. So the idea is to provoke a discussion. I'm not too sure that most of the departments and agencies have insured. From the checks we made, we are only informed of VRE. We are also told that University of Ghana is getting ready to insure some properties. Our concern was that we take a look at this whole arrangement again and to see whether the path our governments have chosen, that is keeping state property away from insurance or staying away from insurance cover, was a wise decision. We looked particularly at the fire outbreak that we had at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We wondered what we lost in that outbreak, what it cost us, and then, of course, we all saw what happened. We just moved into a wing of the Flagstaff House and business as usual. So yes, government may decide that it has the resources, so if it loses any of its properties, it takes up the responsibility itself. But is that the way we want to go? So it's just about provoking a discussion, finding out what we can do. Are there any options we can look at? If you consider the properties that are rampage from time to time, recently we heard of the Nkwanta North problem with DC nominee and people destroying vehicles.
Yeah.
If you go to the Judgment Debt Commission sittings, most of the issues that come up there are about compensations that are paid to people. These are responsibilities. So I really don't know if what I'm hearing is the case, then the Judgment Debt Commissioner wouldn't be having all the problems he's having now with compensations left, right, center, because the vehicles that are involved in some of these cases are not insured. So the idea is just to provoke a discussion. We have chosen a path that government by itself is capable and can compensate people or even indemnify itself. Is that a good path? Ghana government is not alone in this. We know that other governments have also decided that they will take care of their own things. But do we have that wherewithal? Can we do it the way that we're doing? Or should we begin to look at, can we do a selective insurance? So these are the discussions we try to bring up. Then, of course, if you look at the Parliamentary Act of 724, which was promoted by government itself, enacted by Parliament in 2006, particularly requested that all public properties should be insured. That's a law that was brought about by the government.
Andy, I think Larry wants to step in here.
Yeah, the law is very specific that only private properties should be insured as against the state. The obligation rests with only private institutions and commercial.
Are you talking about Act 724?
Yes, Act 724, Section 183 and 184 talks about commercial properties. Commercial. The word commercial is even defined under Section 1843. Yes, but there is some specific mention of schools and hospitals, and to that extent I may agree with you that schools and hospitals are mentioned specifically, but because of the use of the word commercial, there is this difficulty as to whether that reference to schools and hospitals refers to commercial schools which are commercial in nature, that is profit-making institutions, and hospitals which are commercial in nature. That leaves a gap, and we've not had any interpretation. But that does not take away the fact that state institutions are getting bent, state properties are getting vandalized. Should we stick to the indication that only commercial or private commercial properties should be insured? Or should we be looking... Yes.
Are you aware of the agreement that was signed between Ghana government and then the Lands Department?
What department?
Lands Department.
No.
There's an agreement. Okay, there's an agreement. I have cited that agreement signed between the Ghana government and the Lands Department, which agreement says that all properties on public lands should be insured. This is an agreement that is standing. And the Lands Department people have tried to get government to go by its own consent, and it's not able to get them to do so. Yeah. I have the agreement right here. I can quote the agreement to you now. So
yeah, it will be nice to know.
Yeah, it is. Let me just read a bit of it. It says the agreement states in bad quotes to keep the building or the buildings upon the demised properties insured against fire with an insurance company of repute and good standing in the full value determined by a qualified and reputable valuer. Therefore, such insurance company and value to be agreed upon by the parties hereto, whenever required, to produce to the lessor the policy of the insurance and the receipt for the current year's premium, and to cause all monies received by virtue of such insurance to be forthwith laid out in rebuilding and reinstating, so a lot of it. But what is even important is that the agreement, which was signed by the Lands Department as an agency of government, further states that when the above clause is not adhered to, the lessor would have the right to re-enter the property. We're talking about properties on public land.
Yes, I now get what you are referring to. But this refers to properties built on government land which are leased from government by individuals. You know, eventually the land will revert to the state, depending upon the agreement in the lease agreement. Those ones will revert to the state. That is just carrying the provision further, that if a private commercial institution leases land from the government and put up a structure, that structure must be insured in accordance with the provision of the law. So that section,
commercial, not necessarily commercial. If you talk about for instance, the VRA, for instance, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the Ministry of Defense, the Sports Ministry, these are departments and agencies, government departments and agencies. And as you were trying to allude to, some of these have even registered as limited liability companies.
Exactly.
If they were to have a public property, if we take the Accra International Conference Center for that matter, now that's on public land.
Yes.
Should that be insured as you know, to satisfy this agreement which the government itself has entered into?
Yes,
so really the point is about, and I'm happy that Nana has got you in and you are discussing this.
Exactly.
You are the experts on this matter. Should we just leave it? Should the status quo continue? Or should we provoke a discussion?
Yes.
So that we can begin to look for answers and solutions to what we are going through now in terms of all these unexplained fire outbreaks that are creating havoc all over the place. That's the purpose for which we are doing.
Okay. Andrew, I earlier on, I also gave the same indication that you are giving now, that should the state be allowed to, or should we remain in this situation where we have seen state properties getting burnt, getting vandalized? Should we allow the situation to remain, or should we be looking for options, especially social options? The state can decide, look, because of the cost of insurance on all our properties, let me set up a body that will run a sort of social insurance for state institutions, especially those strictly in the civil service. But the public institutions, and I mean public institutions like VRA, Electricity Corporation of Ghana, and the other agencies, most of them are insured.
Okay.
I don't even know which of those authorities that do not have insurance. Invariably, the authorities, the commissions, and then bodies such as Electricity Company of Ghana, okay, that one, they are now a limited liability company, Volta River Authority, and the others, I know for a fact that they have insurance. The problem basically are with properties owned by the civil service or the civil service institutions, the ministries. Those are the ones that we have the problems with now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And just to add to what you're saying and to provoke an argument, is because if the state is guaranteeing, he's definitely guaranteeing with the taxpayers' money. And you pay tax for roads and hospitals, and not, for some careless drivers, mistake. That's why you're paying your tax, just in case somebody doesn't drive properly. So I think it's a good discussion to be open that, look, we don't pay our taxes to, fund accident. We pay to get roads done. So the state should get in the habit of insurance. I mean, I don't know what you gentlemen think about that.
Well, I think so, particularly for the vehicles, really. There's nothing wrong with taking insurance for vehicles. You take care of people, third parties, and other people who may suffer in times of accidents and all that. And the losses that we ourselves suffer, like the example I gave you. So, I mean, for simple things like that. And then also, of course, it's good for government to show example. You cannot, force your citizens to insure rickety trotros, and then you yourself are driving V8 and you refuse to insure them. Really, I don't think it's a good example. So maybe we must find a way. So the idea really is to provoke this discussion, and let's see if we can get new options.
Yeah, Andrew, if I may. When the Ministry of Foreign Affairs fire occurred, and then the former president's building, I know for a fact that some committee was put together to look at the issue critically. I don't know what, and I think it has something to do with national security or something. I don't know what has come out of that, but government vehicles increasingly, even in the civil service, are getting insured. Today I was in one of the ministries chatting with a classmate, and I was informed that all their vehicles are insured. Yes.
On that note, Andy, hold on. I'll just take a quick break and I will come back. Well, welcome back. We're looking at the subject of insurance. We started with the state, get into the habit of insuring state properties so that they don't use tax money as an insurance backup when, whenever there's a problem, they dip into their hands, into the taxpayers, money, and then fix it. They should have insurance. But I want to swiftly move on to the penetration of insurance within the state. And also, just to find out, this oil and gas and FPSO this and FPSO that. I mean, if we are not insuring the Flagstaff House and we're not insuring this, or we're not getting the habit of insuring that, what are we doing? Have we thought about it? And I have an insurance expert here. I don't know if I still have Andrew on the phone. Do I still have
insurance expert? So I think I should leave.
I'll leave this to Larry. So stay there, Larry. First of all, I wonder what percentage is insurance penetration in the country?
The penetration level is about less than 4%.
4% of the people of Ghana,
Ghana,
have some sort of insurance.
Insurance of the person, life, and then insurance for personal injury and all that. Well, less than 4% of Ghanaians are insured.
Well,
and even let me go back to the issue of compulsory insurance, even for the commercial properties. A lot, even though the law is there, there's an issue of enforcement. A lot of commercial properties are not insured. So there is a need for
schools and hospitals.
Yes, as a matter of fact, a lot of them are not. So there's a need for some level of enforcement, and maybe the enforcement should go with some penalties. I know as a fact that some time back, the National Insurance Commission, the regulator, was doing some work with the fire service, so that they go around inspecting fire certificates, which should conspicuously be displayed in your office if you are a commercial enterprise. Some work is going on now, or some collaboration between the fire service and the regulators are going on. I think the police and other prosecuting institutions should be brought in so that they can enforce that this is done, because the level of fire now is getting out of control. Yes.
And the cost and the injury and everything.
Yes.
I'm surprised that, the schools and hospitals and stuff would operate, without the insurance. Could the insurance be linked with registration, so that every year before you register, you need to show insurance for it to be valid?
That will mean a complete change of the regulatory arrangement, but it will be in the right direction. And I think if people from the National Insurance Commission are listening, this is about the best time, because there is some change going on now as far as regulation is concerned. We have a draft bill which is under discussion, and some of these proposals, especially some of the issues Andrew has raised, could be raised at this time so that they could be taken care of in the new law.
Okay.
Yes, or in the draft bill which is still under discussion. It went far and has come back. My understanding is that it has come back for further discussions. So new ideas and new proposals and issues relating to the stage could be captured at this stage, so that beyond this we can get a more encompassing arrangement for all Ghanaians.
If 4% of us are getting involved in personal and life and death coverage, then there's a lot of job opportunities in this area that I think if you're listening and you're joining any unemployment group, this is an area that you need to look at, because there must be a lot of people.
But the cost of setting up is not cheap.
Oh, maybe they will help. If you already set up, they'll come and help and cover certain areas for you in terms of getting people on board. But let us look at our oil and gas. One of our most, one of our prized assets now is our oil and gas industry. And I am told that, with all our insurance put together, we can insure 1% of it.
Yes. So all the insurance companies, 24 general insurance companies in Ghana, cannot take up to...
Including SIC?
Yes, cannot take up to 1.2% of the available business. There. So what we as an industry we have done is to set up an oil and gas pool with the intention of retaining a lot more business. But even with that, most of the business goes through reinsurance.
Wow.
The market retention is about 1.2 plus the commission that comes with it.
Could we, I keep changing laws every 5 minutes. Could we pass a law that they have to use you as a broker?
No, but the local content law is already online, so that provides what you're talking about.
Using you as a broker? No, I mean, the FPSO should find insurance through Ghanaian insurance companies, so that you go and look for insurance for them. At least you can take some percentage.
That is the arrangement now. For oil and gas, there's a pool. Okay. And all the businesses go to the pool, and the pool is the one that distributes it to companies outside.
Okay.
But what we should be concerned about is the market capacity to retain a lot more. If we give out, it goes to other...
The bigger chunk will
yes,
go away.
go to promote other economies. But what we need is the capacity to retain a lot more on the books of the local insurance companies. And also the intermediation should be done by local insurance,
because that should
insurance
be some enough
broking.
premium coming
Exactly.
from there.
Exactly. We are not talking about 20 million, 30 million US dollars in a year. The value of the FPSO is it $4 billion? Yeah. So if you apply the appropriate rate, you are talking about millions, and that's not the only installation in Ghana. The law says properties and liabilities arising in our country should be insured here. But the combined capacity of all the companies can only take a piece.
Wow.
So we need to work on capacity. The National Insurance Commission has just come out, some years back came out that I think from the beginning of next year, every general insurance company should be capitalized up to an X amount. I think that is about, say, $5 million or $10 million US dollars. I'm not too sure.
Every insurance company.
Your minimum capitalization should be up to that X amount.
So some are going to fall that way?
I'm not too sure. There may be mergers and takeovers, or we'll have stronger companies coming from outside buying the smaller ones out.
If we could, let's say, even insure 50% of FPSO.
Nigeria is not even insuring 40% of their oil market.
What I was trying to find out was how the arrangement is that, would they then break it down? So A insurance take this bit, B insurance take this bit, or you put it together and when the liability comes, you share
Yeah,
it?
that is what a pool does. A pool is an association of companies who have come together to take a common risk or to share a common risk. They will each take a piece of the premium of the pie of the risk, and then in the same proportion share the premium.
I see.
I hope you understand.
I see.
Yes.
So in this case,
yes, but the fact is the ability of the companies to take portions of the pie is highly limited. They don't have their capacity. And insurance is a regulated industry. The regulator will not allow you to go and take a big chunk when they know that one claim would
wipe you out.
Will wipe you out completely. They will not. Because your reinsurance arrangement, that is what you give out, must be lodged with the National Insurance Commission. And that they are supposed to ensure that you cannot take more than you can buy.
Let me be clear on this one and in layman terms.
Yeah.
At the moment, with the FPSO and the oil industry, with the insurance, do they come to this consortium and say, look, go and find me insurance? And then as a broker, by all means, you have a percentage?
No, the pool or the consortium, if for want of a better word, but it's a pool, would go and take the business. They are accepting the insurance.
Okay.
As to the arrangements they make outside, has nothing to do with the oil companies or the owners of the drills.
So
and
the
all
brokerage free we can get?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
When they place out the business, they get commission.
Of course.
That is what form the chunk of the market retention of what we keep.
So now we need to build capacity so that we don't need to go and find the business. I see.
We would always go and find.
But at least for a smaller...
we should have a larger portion. I know in Nigeria now, the local content law of Nigeria now insists that at least 40% of the oil and gas business should be taken up by Nigerian companies. And that has significantly helped in growing the Nigerian insurance companies. I think we should also be looking at that.
Well, Larry, it's been an education.
Thank you.
On a very sensitive subject of insurance. And I think maybe we should start teaching it in nursery so that by the time they grow to our age, they understand and actually go out looking for it rather than us chasing them to come and get insured. We're looking at state insurance or the lack of it. And my name is Nanan Sakwa. I was talking to Larry Kwesi Giage, a chartered insurer and also a lawyer. I thank you for coming. Tomorrow we're back here to do it all over again.
Thank you.